Welcome to NYNJPA Weather, your weather source for the Northern Mid-Atlantic. I'm your meteorologist, Stephen DiMartino. We're looking at a potential major severe weather outbreak for much of the Philadelphia and New York City metropolitan area this afternoon. We'll start with the visible satellite picture for 10 a.m. this morning. And as you can see, we still have some low clouds hanging around the immediate New Jersey coast and parts of Long Island and southern Connecticut. These low clouds and fog is starting to rapidly lift and clear out. And when they do, temperatures are going to skyrocket into the 80s and 90s. Now, this is a key feature with this potential severe weather outbreak. The faster the clouds clear, and as you can see, that has happened over much of eastern Pennsylvania and western and northeastern New Jersey, the faster the temperatures will be able to rise. And the more that they're able to rise, the more unstable the atmosphere gets. Unfortunately, as a cold front is approaching the northern mid-Atlantic, this means that severe thunderstorms will be a high threat for this afternoon. Notice already over parts of northwestern Pennsylvania as the cold front is approaching those locations, showers and thunderstorms are already starting to develop, and they will likely expand southwestward towards the Pittsburgh metropolitan area later on this morning and into early afternoon hours. As the cold front approaches later on this afternoon, those lines of showers and thunderstorms will move towards the northern mid-Atlantic, and when they do, they will produce severe thunderstorms capable of large hail, heavy downpours, frequent lightning, and even an isolated tornado. However, there's another concern I have with the wind gusts, which I'm going to show with the water vapor satellite picture. The water vapor satellite picture this morning shows two very interesting features over the eastern United States. The first one is circled in yellow, and it's going to be the feature that will directly impact the northern mid-Atlantic, and that would be very cold, dry air aloft. Now, why is this important? Well, the colder and drier the air mass is at 500 millibars and above, the more unstable the air mass gets. Now, the problem here is that there is a lot of cold, dry air moving ahead of the cold front over central and western Pennsylvania, and that's making a beeline right towards the northern mid-Atlantic. With the air mass at the surface becoming very warm and unstable, or let's just say hot and humid, that means that as this air mass is able to rise into the upper atmosphere, clouds are able to develop and thunderstorms are able to rapidly grow into upper portions of the atmosphere. This leads to two potential severe weather impacts. One, obviously, is heavy hail, large hail, that could exceed over an inch in diameter in some thunderstorms, and also powerful downdraft wind gusts. Now, what that basically means is that the moisture at the lower parts of the atmosphere rises up into 500 millibars where it's cold and dry. That air condenses and becomes evaporationally cool. And as that air becomes evaporationally cool, it sinks rapidly towards the surface, kind of like a hammer or a rock that goes right into the pond. And as a result, that sinking air can cause very strong wind gusts. And wind gusts could possibly exceed 60 miles per hour in some of these thunderstorms. I would not be surprised if there's a 70 mile per hour gust. And they could also produce very weak, short-lived tornadoes. So we're going to have to keep an eye on this severe weather threat, as all of the features needed for a severe weather outbreak over the northern mid-Atlantic are starting to come into place this morning. The other feature I want to point out is already our first tropical low starting to develop off the southeast coast. This low pressure system is rapidly moving towards Florida and will likely make landfall later on this evening. Now, right now, there's only a 30% chance of development into a tropical depression, but we're going to have to keep an eye on this low pressure system, because if it's able to cut under the trough that's moving through the northern mid-Atlantic and much of the east coast, then it will be able to develop in the Gulf of Mexico, and that may create some interesting problems for the Gulf Coast and later on possibly much of the east coast. So we're going to have to keep an eye on this disturbance as it dives south and west. Otherwise, again, the primary threat for this afternoon and evening will be the severe weather. So what happens after this cold front moves through? Well, we're going to remain warm, but maybe also a bit stormy. This is the 500 millibar forecast from the European Model Guidance from the Penn State EWOL website on Thursday evening. And this 500 millibar forecast is pretty much the same as what you're going to see from Thursday all the way through next Wednesday, which is basically a powerful ridge setting up over the Mississippi River Valley and disturbances diving into the west coast, lifting northeast towards the northern plains, intensifying and merging with the polar jet stream over central Canada, and then diving southeastward towards the northern New England coastal waters and the Canadian Maritimes. Now, this type of weather pattern for the northern mid-Atlantic usually leads to a variety of weather impacts. Ahead of these disturbances, the weather pattern becomes very warm and humid, with temperatures that are typically focused over the Ohio Valley in the lower to mid-90s, racing into the Philadelphia and New York City metropolitan area under a southwesterly wind at the surface. Unfortunately, as these disturbances dive southeastward towards the northern New England coastal waters, they also have a cold front clip through the New York City and Philadelphia metropolitan area that could produce isolated to widely scattered showers and thunderstorms, and some of those thunderstorms can be severe. The brunt of these cold fronts will be focused more towards New England than the northern mid-Atlantic, but the point here is that when there isn't showers and thunderstorms, high pressure will be in control with scattered clouds, temperatures slightly above normal in the 80s, possibly hitting lower 90s ahead of these cold fronts, and overall dry conditions. However, when these cold fronts do move through, watch out for severe thunderstorms because they can develop rapidly. So the storm track remains to the north of the northern mid-Atlantic, but we will still be clipped by a few cold fronts passing through. Behind the cold fronts, there really isn't much in a way of change in the atmosphere, in the air mass, because of the ridge position driving warm, moist air from the Mississippi River Valley back into the northern mid-Atlantic with each cold front passage. So there really isn't a chance for any type of cool down, just basically temperatures remaining slightly to moderately above normal with bouts of high humidity in between these cold fronts. So get ready for summer. It's here, and it's pretty much established as a pattern that will bring us plenty of warm conditions and an active tropical season. Thank you for trusting in NYNJPA weather as your weather source for the northern mid-Atlantic. I will have severe weather coverage throughout the afternoon and evening hours as the severe thunderstorms develop, along with watches and warning alerts. I'm your meteorologist, Stephen DiMartino. Stay safe out there.